we're going to go right down to Adam, if we could. Adam, I'm interested in hearing your perspective as you have been working in the Asia context to build pipelines of projects at scale. Is going to require Asian countries to take a lead in supply-side action. And I'd love to have you comment on where are we in getting countries to advance leadership? What are the challenges of those that are lagging behind?
Thanks very much, Jennifer. And again, if I could add my congratulations to everybody who's worked so hard to bring today together. I was, I think, one of the earliest members of the RE100 advisory board, and it's just so good to see this initiative being launched today. It's the fulfillment, if not the ultimate fulfillment, of the RE100 initiative, but we're going a long way. Mainstream Renewable Power is a developer of onshore and offshore power projects, wind and solar. We are active in the bilateral offtake space in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe, but, and this goes to Helen's point earlier about the paradox of Asia, of the Asia-Pacific region. It's the most limited region for corporate offtake at the moment, as we all know, but yet it's the one with the greatest potential. And what really excites me about the opportunity is that potential, the potential for the four of us on this panel to work together to help to unlock the regulatory reform that we were referred to in the presentation earlier. And in answering your question, I was reflecting on Glasgow last year. I think a number of us have been reflecting on Glasgow, not just the change in temperature. And two things happened at Glasgow in this context. One was the letter, I think was published in the FT the week before, from a range of Japanese manufacturers, making it very, very clear to their government that if they didn't have regulatory reform to make it easier for them to engage in bilateral offtake, they would look to shift their manufacturing elsewhere. And it's that kind of direct, visible pressure from off-takers that will move the dial. And the second was the point that Ben touched on, was the very dramatic intervention from the Vietnamese Prime Minister when he announced his country's net zero ambitions. I think it would be invidious for me to name or even shame individual countries, but we are making progress. Vietnam and Indonesia are in JETP discussions. We have the G20 this week in Indonesia. We hope we'll see progress with Indonesia. There is a lot of regional competition. Countries don't want to lose high-value manufacturing to their neighbors. Vietnam looks over its shoulder at the Philippines. Philippines looks over its shoulder at Indonesia. Indonesia looks to Thailand. And I think that the real opportunity for all of us involved in this initiative is to make it very, very clear that those companies don't have to go to a particular country. They have a choice. And that choice will be driven by how easy it is and how quickly we can achieve that regulatory reform to enable the kind of offtake that we all want to see.
Great. And Adam, I think what Marston just laid out is sort of this question of priority markets and Asia as a priority. It certainly has been front and center in many of the COP conversations this past week, not only because of the JETP conversations, but also because of the broader sort of coal to clean transition and what that means in terms of getting to a new climate economy. Tell me a little bit about how corporate voices make a big difference, and if there's a specific view that you have about how we get the transition from coal to clean.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is the fundamental point, isn't it? Most of the countries in the region are facing increasing power demand at different degrees of speed, but they're all facing situations in the immediate future where their supply margins will get negative, where they will not have sufficient power to meet the increased demands of their economies. Vietnam wants to double the size of its grid, so does the Philippines. All of those countries are on the same trajectory. The default position is to reach for the button marked coal. Let's build more coal capacity, because that's what's been done in the past. The decision 2 years ago, 18 months ago, by China, Japan, Korea, to stop the export finance of coal, all the work that the Powering Past Coal Alliance is doing, has done, is doing, means that it is now much more difficult for them to reach for that default. It's very, very difficult to bring forward new large-scale coal in the region. and we all know what's happening in the LNG market as well. That's also introducing a degree of volatility and price spikes that is not healthy if you're trying to build a long-term reliable energy market. So to answer your question directly, what can corporate voices do? It's to reassure energy ministries, reassure grid operators, reassure the ministries responsible for foreign direct investment that renewable energy, wind, solar, onshore, offshore, floating, wherever it's located, supplies reliable, quick to build, and inexpensive electricity supply that they can use and will use to generate and manufacture goods that will add to the country's economy. And that's the most helpful message, because it's all very well for me and my colleagues in the developers and the generators to turn up, but you would say that, wouldn't you? But when our potential customers and the potential growth engine of those markets turns up and says, we want renewable energy. We want it not just because our shareholders want it and our customers want it, but we want it because it's the cheapest alternative. We want it because it's reliable. We want it because it can be built tomorrow, and we don't have to wait and put off our investment decisions for 5 or 10 years. So that is where I think corporate voices and my esteemed colleagues on the panel can be the most effective at encouraging governments to go further, faster in that transition from coal to clean.